Hello, I'm Karl at Trident Fly Fishing. Today we're going to tie a fly called the Humpy. Comes in a couple of three different color variations. This one's going to be in yellow. From what I've been able to find, the fly originated in California in the 1940s. It's an attractor type fly, utilizes a lot of deer hair and heavy hackle. Really buoyant, great for fast water, and if you're going to run a dropper, it's a great indicating fly. And we'll get a TMC 100 in size 12 in the vise. Semperfli Nano Silk in 12/0. I typically see this fly tied from, say, a 10 to a 16. So we'll start with our thread just a little over an eye length behind the hook eye and lay down a thread base. Short one where the wing's going to be. And our wing is going to be made from deer hair. I've got a little bit of it here in a stacker. It's probably about a half a pencil width in diameter. We want this wing to be length of the shank of the hook. So we're going to measure that out. Like so. And then we're going to make a couple of pinch wraps to hold that in place. And then start making wraps backwards. Don't let go of the butt ends as you wrap back. It'll make it much easier to cut off the butts. Looks pretty good. Now, hanging on to the butts, we're going to sneak in here with the scissors and cut this off at an angle, like so. Never seem to get it all. There we are. Now we're going to wrap back forward, move our thread up in front of the wing, and we're going to form a thread dam, maybe 5, 6, 7 turns or so. That's going to stand the hair up for us. Then we're going to separate that hair into 2 individual clumps or 2 wings. Take some turns around that hair to separate it. Now some figure 8 turns. Further separate the hair. And if you want, you can take a few turns around each wing itself to separate it even more. There. Now I like to just pull all that forward and get it out of our way for the remainder of the tie. We're going to run our thread back to where we tie our tail in. It's going to be right above the barb of the hook, right at the gouge. Tail material we're going to use is going to be moose hair. Got several strands here in the stacker. Tap that a few times on the bench to even up the tips. I'm going to measure that against the hook shank. I'm going to tie that in right on top. Run our thread forward to where the butts of the winged deer hair ended. That looks good. And we're going to snip off the excess material. Clean that up a bit. And the next material we're going to tie in is going to be the back of the fly. That's going to be more deer hair. So we'll snip off a small clump here. You don't need too much of this. One of the mistakes that I see people make with this fly is they use too much material on the back of the fly, and it makes it really thick and ill proportioned. So we'll get that in the stacker. Even up the tips. This probably isn't necessary because I cut the tips off. I just like a nice clean tie-in point. All right, that's a little bit too much hair, so probably like so. I'm going to snip off those tips like that. I'm going to tie that in. Now you want to hang on to these butt ends and hold them up off the hook shank at a 45-degree angle. That's going to keep these right on top of the hook shank, won't allow them to wrap around it. And it'll wrap all the way back to the base of the tail. Like so. Just didn't want to cooperate. All right, for the belly of the fly, we're going to use some yellow floss. This is Vivus. Tie that in, run it all the way back to the base of the tail. Come back forward with the thread to just behind our wing. Get our bobbin holder out, get the thread out of the way. And we're going to make overlapping turns around the body of the fly to make a nice smooth belly on this. We're going to stop just short of the wing because we have the back to tie in and some hackles. So right to there. And get out your trusty scissors. Okay, now we're going to tie in the back. I want to get a hold of those butts, pull them straight up and away from the tail fibers. And without twisting them, keeping them nice and straight, we're going to lay those across the back in between the two wings. Take a look at your fly and make sure it's centered. And we're going to take, oops, I caught some wing material there. I'm going to take 3 turns over that, like so. Pull that tight. And without let go of all of those butt ends, we're going to sneak in here with our scissors. Too much coffee today, I guess. Cut that off. Managed to snip a couple on the back, but we'll fix that. Clean that up. Okay, now we're ready to tie in the hackle. We use two different hackles for this. We use a brown and a grizzly, size to the hook, in this case a 12. To prepare this, I snip off some barbules from the end, like so, and leave some small stubs. Those stubs give the thread something to grab a hold of, and it's much less likely that the hackle's going to pull out when you're wrapping it in. Now I tie these both in together. I lay the grizzly over the brown. You don't have to do it that way. You can tie them in one at a time if you wish. So we're going to tie those in right behind the wing like so. We're tying them in with the concave side toward the fly. Now we'll move our thread forward to the hook eye. Tip this up just a bit. There we go. Okay, the first one we're going to tie in is going to be the grizzly. This is a really nice rich feather, so probably 3 turns is all it's going to take to fill that up. Maybe even 2. Yeah. Pull your wing back as close as you can get to the wing. Take a turn. There's 1, 2. I'm going to tie that off. Get in there with our scissors. And now the brown. That's going to go in between the grizzlies. Pay attention to your wing. It's easy to drag the wing around and not recognize you've done that until you're all done with the fly. And just like with the grizzly, pull the wing back, tuck that in as tight as you can. That stands that wing up nice for you. Tie that off. Make a few turns around that to start to form a nice head. Being careful not to trap any of the hackle feathers if you can. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do now is make a 4 or 5 turn whip finish on the fly. Again, try not to trap any hackles. Cut that off. And a little head cement. And there's your completed fly. So I'd like to mention that all the materials used for this fly today are available at tridentflyfishing.com, and I'd like to encourage you to patronize the store. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.